Theodosia and the Eyes of Horus. This is written by R.L. LaFevers or LaFevers and was written in 2010. I actually picked this book up out of one of those book boxes. I haven't read the first two. Even so, it kept me engaged the whole time, which is really impressive because I have a very short attention span and most books I read I don't really like all that much. This book is about an 11-year-old girl who can sense dark magic, and her brother is home for the holidays from school and he ends up finding an artifact. Now our main character, Theodosia, she's a part of this secret society kind of a thing. Theodosia is supposed to be looking for other artifacts, but she ends up focusing on this one in particular that isn't related to what she's supposed to be doing. Now so many people are coming after this particular artifact that inevitably holds a lot of power even though she doesn't know what it does. It seems that the Theodosia's series is full of different elements combined of a lot of middle grade fiction. So Theodosia, she lives with her parents and she has a relationship with them that's pretty good. And same thing with her brother. I loved the relationship between her and her brother in the story. It added a lot of humor to it. And it's just nice to see middle grade fiction with family elements, because middle grade fiction teaches a lot to kids and it's not always, about kids who don't have family. This book series also focuses a lot on Egyptian mythology. This doesn't seem at all like the Percy Jackson series where it's heavily focused on the gods and the monsters. There were no monsters in here, just gods, and so it really held a lot of different elements together between family and the gods, and also had a lot of adults in it, which was cool to see because sometimes there's not always a lot of adults in it, there's just kids. And really the only kids in here was her brother and her friend and her friend's little brothers. As far as the craft of the writing goes, I was really impressed with the story. It wasn't simplified. It didn't feel like it was meant to be read by a 9-year-old kind of a voice. A lot of middle grade fiction, even if the protagonists are 12 or 13 years old, it's written very simply. This has a lot of complex words and diverse sentence structure, which makes it very interesting to read. For the most part, it was great. There were a couple of things that I didn't like. For example, Theodosia used the word afoot in a sentence in dialogue, and while I think that's okay in narration, first person narration even, it just sounded unnatural in the dialogue. A couple of other things that were a little bit sticky in the book as far as dialogue goes was an inconsistency in accents. Her friend Will doesn't have a proper British accent, I guess you could say, so he talks a lot like this and skips a lot of his H's and stuff like that. And so he sometimes, where he would say your or for in the beginning of the book, towards the middle and end he would say your, Y-E-R, and fer, F-E-R. There just wasn't a consistent accent with him. It was very subtle though, just little things. Another thing is this is a British book. The story is British. They live in London. I'm pretty sure the author is American because it says she grew up in Los Angeles, California. For the most part, everything was okay as far as the language used to be a British novel. The only thing was sometimes there was the word and in my experience with reading, is a very American thing to say, and then you'll see ER, ERM for British, and it used ER most of the time and twice. These are pretty picky things, but I like to pay attention to craft and consistency and typos. This book didn't have any typos, some books do, and for some reason it gets on readers' nerves. I would highly recommend this book, more so this series, because if the third book was this good, then the first two books just have to be amazing. There was no third book syndrome in this one, and I give it a thumbs up. If you're looking for appropriate books for your kids to read, there was no swearing, there's no violence, there is a gun in it, so there's a couple of scary things in that way where this girl does get a gun held to her head. But it was written well. It wasn't too scary or anything. If this book interests you, then you should check it out. Theodosia and the Eyes of Horus, written by R.L. LaFevers.